Boom.
look at
Man, it is so good to have you back on the show. You were internet gold last time you were here, man.
I don't know, maybe a little bit of copper. I don't know if I can go quite gold yet.
Hey, take it while you can get it, man. Stephen, our world, and by the way, as you do know, Greg Wrench's his computer blew up on him, so he couldn't make it tonight. It's unfortunate. Well, some of these tech problems seem to always happen like just before a show, so you always wonder, you know. I mean, one could say targeted, I don't know. But speaking of targeted, man, I got to ask you. Let's just get right out of the gate on this one here and fire this thing up. These fires are going around worldwide, not just in Hawaii, not just in more fires in Canada, but they're in other countries now. Is it just the planet drying up, heating up, or is it, dare I say, directed energy weapons, or just good old-fashioned clear sky lightning?
You got a little bit of the first two. I mean, of course, lightning can also be a part of that. One of the things since we talked last, Daniel, is I got another update from some friends there in the intelligence community that I work with, and we were actually discussing as the way they put it, a large celestial body coming in from behind the sun that is causing things to align a certain way. And the big thing that they discussed with me is that it's affecting, mostly we would see weather phenomena here on the planet, unlike anything we've ever really seen before. That does include, we did discuss the fact of it causes the core of the Earth to heat up. We are having, as it gets more, the more that we get into this, the more we'll have, I don't know if you want to call it fissures in the earth from, where we're dealing with cracks and things like that. But there does seem to be two. And of course, people have put these things online. I haven't actually talked to anybody specifically about it. I know we have the technology to use laser weapons from satellites to create fires down here on the earth. There has been some indication, especially in the case of Hawaii, that may be that. But I think a lot of it, though, Daniel, really comes from the severe weather changes that we're going to see. And that's only going to get worse. That's the one thing we discussed mostly in that conversation there, is that it's going to get much worse. And I'll just quickly mention this before I stop here.
Mm-hmm.
What brought it up was, I get people that'll send me different celestial objects, things like that. Most of those objects are refractions in their lens. They may not realize it. It looks like it's a planet or a star or something in the daytime. But I got one in recently with the moon, and there was a celestial body that obviously looked more like that of an asteroid almost. But you knew it wasn't an asteroid because it was too big. And it clearly was evident that it was in the sky, and they've taken it for several nights in a row, different positionings depending on how the Earth is spinning. This was from southern Australia, or actually southeast Australia. So I sent it to some friends in Washington, asked them what their take was on it, and they said that they knew about it. They said they had better images, naturally because of being in the government. But they said that is part of those. They said that celestial body is causing things to move and shift that we normally would not see.
Do you believe that at some point Mars was inhabited?
Yeah, it actually was. There are bases there. And as crazy as this is going to sound, Daniel, when I say we, that doesn't include me, as just far as the U.S. government. U.S. government works very closely with Russia on space programs, and we have, from what I've been told, we have bases on Mars. There's one on one of the moons around Jupiter. We've got several other bases throughout the universe here. Most of those bases, not because we built any of those. These have been built from, as I like to say, fallen angels. I hate to use the word I mean, I don't hate to use the word aliens, but I mean, let's face it, there are different life forms out there that they've taken on. And but when we're as Christians, when we're looking at it, we would tend to think more like along the lines of fallen angels. So, but yes, they've built those bases. We've actually got one on the moon as well. In fact, the one on the moon was uninhabited, and it's deep within the moon. It's just right actually off the north. If you're looking, I'll say the north end, the top of the moon, just on the back side, just enough out of sight where you don't see it. And that one is very deep within the planet. In fact, we have been doing shuttle missions up there because from what I've been told, they're wanting, the elite are wanting to go there when this so-called binary system comes through, because they figure they have a better chance of surviving it in that particular base there on the moon.
Howdad asked this question. It says, Stephen, rivers turning to blood all over the world, is that God giving us a sign?
Wow. That's a tough one. And you're right. You have different, I mean, we've been having for years now things like that happening, and whether or not that's a direct sign from God or not, I can't say. Mm-hmm. I do know that we've had in Saudi Arabia, there has been 3 different strains of locusts that have come out that have never been seen on the earth before. You can actually, they're not hiding that either, Daniel, that you can actually go and you have to do a little digging, but if you do a little digging, you can find it. Sometimes Yandex, that particular browser works a little bit better on some of these issues, mm-hmm. because if you're using Google or any of the U.S. type of search engines, they tend to kind of hide some of that information. Don't know why they would, mm-hmm. but yeah, there's 3 different new types of locust type of creatures that we've never seen mm-hmm. before at all. Mm-hmm. So when I say that because you mentioned the rivers turning like blood red, mm-hmm. And we think, of course, the Exodus story, and that's why I kind of put the 2 and 2 together, because we know that Moses turns the water to blood, etc.
Yeah, well, one of those evidences is I think around the Gulf Coast at some point, vast parts of the ocean by the continental shelf there turns red because of dead plankton and that kind of thing there. But if you just do a simple Google search on dead fish, you will find dead fish en masse all over the planet. And I mean, this year as well, just millions of fish washing up on shore. Just recently in June in Texas, overseas, just all over. You have that going on. There's also birds falling out of the sky. But let me ask something. So knowing that, we also have, as I mentioned in my ranting points, talking about the vast grasslands in Hawaii burnt up. And, of course, the forests are burning up all over the planet as well, particularly in Canada, California. Vast amounts of tracts of land. So we have fish, whales for the first time just washing up on the East Coast. All mass fish just showing up all over the place. Grass being burnt up. We also have people, one of the main causes of death now is heart problems. You put all that together, what you have is Book of Revelation. Now, I know people may disagree with me, but I'm saying at what point are we going to say it is? Because the Bible said that 1/3 of the grass will be burnt up, 1/3 of the forest will be burnt up, the fish in the sea would die, and it says men's hearts failing them for fear of the things coming on the planet. Now, here's why are people's hearts failing? Well, I guess I'm on Rumble, so I guess I can't get kicked off just quite yet. But the people's hearts are dying because they had fear that they were going to get some gnarly disease, so they got the shot. They got a shot because of fear. They were scared, and they're so scared that if you don't got it, they think you're the devil. I mean, and it didn't say failed; it says failing. Men's hearts failing. That to me is a period of time. This is an unprecedented time in human history. But at what point, with the fish and the grass and the forest and the birds and the hearts, do we start to say maybe we're kind of there? Because people thinking, well, like for instance, 1/3 of the grass burned up, like it's going to happen all at one time. The Bible didn't say that. It didn't say all the forests would burn up at one time. It appears that there's a continual process of where this is happening. Now, at what point do we actually say There's no other explanation for it because it's fitting this, and this. Because I know now, and I don't know I'm ranting a little bit on it, but give me a little more space. I'll give it back to you.
That's all right, brother. Go ahead.
I'm going to get back to you a little bit. But people are scared out of their mind to say, God caused this. They just, even Christians can't say, the grass burned up, or this massive hurricane is going to hit the Californicators, because the California is the world leader in sex slaves and pornography pushing out. So somebody, could easily make an association. So people, whether or not it is not, but people are scared to say that this is God's handiwork. But doesn't God really kind of use natural events? I mean, if you look at the Old Testament, they were all natural events. The Red Sea, storms, pillars of fire here and there, hailstones. It wasn't a death ray from space. It was natural phenomena that was meted out on the human population. I'm just saying, and people are scared. They can't just hold back some. Well, I don't really want to say that's it. And I'm thinking, well, what would you say? Draw me a picture of what it would be if these things, this alignment, isn't it?
Well,
I'm done.
You're exactly right, my brother. I mean, the thing is it's like the question is when do we finally say we are certainly watching prophecy unfold before our eyes? And I really like the way you kind of describe that. It's not a sudden shock and awe. It is over a period of time that these things happen. Even, let's face it, the Exodus, like you said, it happened over a course of a period of time. The difference was Moses and Aaron knew about what was going to happen. They could prophesy it before it took place because, God had already showed them that it was coming. Mm-hmm. And even in these issues here that we're talking about, especially when you quote the scripture, man's heart's failing them for fear. Literally, the scripture says for things that are coming up on the earth. So it also makes you wonder, besides even the things that you're mentioning there, mm-hmm. What about the other things that are coming upon the earth? Now, when I say that, I'm going to share a little something here, Daniel, that a lot of people don't even know about. This was actually technically classified, but mm-hmm. I kind of let the cat out of the bag on this one day. So we had down off the coast of Brazil, there's an island that we control down there. The U.S. government controls it. And oddly enough, Daniel, it's just like Jurassic Park. Wow. They have taken the DNA from dinosaurs, and they've taken reptilian DNA, and they have been able to create, basically recreate some of the dinosaur types of creatures. Velociraptors are one of those type creatures that they've created on that island. The reason why I actually brought this out, and the only reason I could kind of get away with it, was because I was made aware that two velociraptors that actually got off the island swam to shore, but it's on a coastline of Brazil that's very remote. That's one of the advantages of where this is at. But the things got out, and they're down there trying to capture these things and get them back before anybody finds out that we've got this experiment going on. Just so happened, one of those little rascals had made it to where somebody caught a video of it because it was in there rummaging through their trash. And most people thought, oh, that's just CGI. When I first shared out the video, that's just CGI. I'm like, you have no idea what we do. But here's the weird thing, though. And I'd be curious to know if Colonel Greg knows about this here. He probably does. And maybe he's already mentioned it on your program before. In what we call inner Earth, there are still what we would call prehistoric creatures that exist.
Wow.
And there's also other types of creatures. In fact, up in Antarctica, we've got this one place. I'm sorry, I should say Antarctica, North Pole region, up around the Greenland area there. We found some underground caverns from where the permafrost and things have been melting. And when we sent cameras down in there, there's like these huge claw marks, but there's also huge bodies of water that we detected, I think, two different creatures that would make the biggest whale on Earth look like a kitty cat next to a dog. And
Hmm.
but the Russians also ran into something similar to that. But when they sent their people down in there, Daniel, they ended up getting some of their scientists got killed by whatever creature was
Wow.
under that ice. So that's where the U.S. decided not to do it. So my point is that there are strange creatures like we've never seen before. And I think that could be some of the things that'll scare the people. And even like when you're showing on the screen behind you the pictures of the sea life and stuff, I do know that that is actually occurring because of two things. Some because the earth is cracking and stuff. There's a lot of activity going on under the oceans that they're just not telling the people
Hmm.
about.
Wow.
That is being caused by uh, there's a certain type of radiation the sun is emitting that's hitting the earth from all these massive plasma things that are coming out, and they're keeping that all under wraps, but it's affecting our earth, and not just the earth but inside the mantle of the earth. It's affecting it so greatly that it is causing these cracks. It's releasing gases, things like that, from what I've heard. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the mass die off of fish and whales and things like that. Now, normally the
Hmm.
whales is because of some experiment that the government is doing
Hmm.
with certain weapons, and that could be also another
Yeah.
contributing factor. But
Well,
I do
yeah. I
know
mean,
that,
so no, I agree with you, and of course the I'm going to use maybe the word carnally minded person or the explainer or the denier would say, well, the red dead plankton, that's not a judgment of God. That's simply because farmers are putting, or draining uh, their fields of fertilizer into the water streams coming out and choking all the light out into all the oxygen. So I mean every single thing can be explained naturally. I guess that's the word better explains what I'm trying to say. And these
right.
natural explanations are given to us every single time. The system there's one explanation for these things that they will not acknowledge it ever exists, and that is the spiritual part. That there is a spiritual component to this. So we're always going to get the explanation of, well, this is happening because that, the fires are happening because, we're running gas cars, and people's having heart attacks. Well, they've always had them, I mean, so, nothing new here. Although I beg to differ. If anybody go look at their news feed 2-3 years ago, you wouldn't even see that every day. It's like another one, another one, another one. A kid, a baseball player, a basketball player, a football player, a announcer, people's faces getting paralyzed. So it's like now it's every day. All right, let's get to another question here for you, Stephen. They're just filing in here. The question says, how did they get through the firmament?
All right. That's that's an interesting one because I know that generally, and I'm not here, I don't want to pick on people's beliefs, Daniel, but normally when people think of the firmament, you know, it, it's more of a flat Earth theory that goes on out there
Mm-hmm.
about that. And
Okay.
so I'm not going to beat up on people that believe in that, but
Okay.
at the same time, I think when you're dealing with your firmament, the real issue about the firmament is what we call the magnetosphere. You have the troposphere, the stratosphere, et cetera, the different spheres that we have. The magnetosphere, what does happen is that the magnetosphere, literally, it is like that huge ball around the Earth. But what people don't realize is because of these different spheres we have, it blocks a lot of you what in other words we it blocks is something the way that the light comes in and things where we're not able to see out beyond that as easily as you can. Now I know this because when we sent out the Hubble telescope back years ago, the first time it went out, and we actually penetrated beyond that of the magnetosphere, they had to classify every photograph that was taken. And the reason being is because once you get beyond that veil, so to speak, you can see things that you never. It's just like it's like nuts to hear about it. Finally, though, what happened is they took and they began to then when they finally did begin to release some of the photos, you'll see that there's things that are blacked out. They're always having to black out the information there because if the magnetosphere were to collapse, and there is a belief that that is going to happen in the very near future. Not only do I know this from, our intelligence community, the scientists that work there, but I know it from scientists out of Europe, good friends of mine there that have worked on CERN, et cetera. And by the way, CERN does play a little bit in that role of causing that magnetosphere to collapse. But if the magnetosphere were to collapse, even for a brief period of time, you would be able to see easier planets and things like that that are inhabited, that you normally, when I say inhabited, like the Earth. I mean, if we were to go out so far, look back at the Earth, you can see the lights and stuff at night because of the electricity. Well, these other planets, we know we can tell because of the fact we've gone beyond that, and they do have electricity on them. So it would shock a lot of people, but our different spheres block that certain lights coming in, so we can't tell that from here. And so it is going to be a big shock to a lot of people if they're ever able to see that, I should say. So,
wow.
but anyway, yeah, we are able to go through it, and I know that, like I said, that's a different argument though, Daniel, altogether. So
that's a heck of a great conversation on that one. All right, let's get a few more of these questions out of here. How do the reptiles reproduce? From Joan Collins 3.
How do reptiles reproduce?
How do they reproduce? Maybe they've seen some pictures of the reptiles and it doesn't look like they're carrying any kind of package. So I don't know what's going on there.
I'm not really sure where they're going with on that. Unless they're wondering about reptilians as far as these entities. Maybe they can kind of see it if that's what they're asking. That I do know about, but I don't know if that's what they're looking for as far as when they say reptiles. I mean, just regular reptiles.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking they're thinking.
I don't know.
I'm thinking they're thinking reptilian aliens.
Okay, if they're talking about reptilian aliens, right? Yes, that one I can explain. The reptilians, their anatomy is identical to the human anatomy. They do. I mean, the male anatomy is just like a male anatomy on a man. Same thing with the female. So yes, they're able to reproduce that way there. In fact, the reptilians are the most active. They're the one species of entity that does not have problems on procreation, whereas I know that I've been told that there's 135 different species of entities that we are aware of. And out of that, the reptilians are the ones that there's more of them than any other ones in the entire universe. And they're the ones that don't have any problems with that. But there are a lot of them that do have problems. The Venetians, the Nordics, all of these, it's more, Nordics not as much, but Venetians and things like that, they have a very difficult time. Not that they can't, but reproducing is a very difficult.
So I think you're saying that they do have a package, but it seems like I was just talking to a guest. I don't know, it might have been you, but maybe it was another guest. But they suggested that when the sons of God came down and mated with women, that they were able to reduce the size, because people always had that kind of question. Well, if they're giants and you got a basic female, there's going to be some problems there. But they said that they can.
Let me clarify something on reptilians too. You have with the reptilian aliens, we have different types of reptilians that are out there, even though they're cousins. The draconians are very tall. You're talking about 20, 25 foot tall beings. But the typical reptilian that looks more like one of the pictures you had up a moment ago there, where it has like a lizard looking head, but has the body of like a human being. They do have a tail like that. That's the one right there. They have a head very similar to that, but they do have a tail. The anatomy is the same as a human. They average between 7 to 9 foot tall. And the other thing is that they do have the ability to change their form. Now, it doesn't mean that they physically change that form, but they cause the person that sees them to think that they are human. And the way that was described to me is they have an ability to cause our brain to perceive that they're human. Now, oddly enough, this was something that was disclosed to me through the intelligence community one time when they were talking about that. And because I studied the ancient documents and things of that nature there, I actually ran across one document one time, and I don't even know where it's at now, the hundreds that I've studied over the years. But it actually specifically spoke about that issue, that when the fallen angels first came to the women, they would not receive them. So they transformed their form to appear as if they were their husbands. And so
Wow.
that was kind of weird to read that in an old document. And at the same time, know from the intelligence community, but that is a variability that they have.
Wow. All right. Another question comes in. This is King James Bible says, and I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. Is this just talk? And like I say earlier in our conversation, we're seeing vapor of smoke. We're seeing fire. People having blood issues. I mean, there's some strange stuff going on. What say you?
Well, the thing is, I mean, sometimes we could take it allegoric, but a lot of times it doesn't have to be allegoric. I mean, let's face it, blood, smoke, vapors of fire, and the blood could be allegoric, like they say, the water turns to blood, and even in the days of Moses, was it that the river physically turned to a physical blood, or is it just a phenomenon that made it appear as blood? We don't really know. As far as how that goes. But nonetheless, if you take the others, though, the vapors, the smoke, I mean, there's all kinds of things that are going on the earth right now that if people only knew in some places, these things could be fulfilling and nobody even realizes it, Daniel. That's what's strange about it. And that's something that people need to keep in mind. It doesn't mean that everything's going to fulfill right here in the United States or over in Israel, or, it could be in some remote location somewhere else, but still be prophetically fulfilling itself.
All right. This question comes in. Says, Stephen, what do aliens say about the afterlife?
It's kind of funny that question comes up. I was in a meeting one time that was disclosed to me, a conversation that was going on between two entities that had met, and I have no idea who they met with, but they were discussing Ra, the sun god. Allegedly, they were there as representatives of Ra, the sun god, that was actually over Egypt, that in 2026, they claim, and I'm just saying that they claim, I don't know if this is true or not, this is secondhand information for me, but that they were going to come and they're going to present to mankind that they're the saviors of the world. They're coming when, as the way it was put to me, when we have gone into a major world war, which I was told that basically would begin around the end of 2024, going into our 2023, going into 2024. About halfway through the year in 2024 is when we will end up in a third world war, that Putin would actually no longer be in power. They'd put a more hardliner in there. And that also we would end up with a virus that would make COVID look like a little toothache compared to what's coming. It's supposed to be 10 times worse. Yeah. There again, these are man-made viruses, and they're talking about using one of the viruses that has been discovered under the permafrost and literally releasing it. But the thing is that these entities, though, were saying in this meeting here that when they come, they're going to come offering a way to heal the people of the severe diseases that are going on, a way to stop the wars, and they're going to claim that they're the ones that sent Jesus, they sent Muhammad, but as far as going into an afterlife, they're not looking as far as the afterlife as much as they are as setting up, mimicking what we would call a millennial reign.
Well, speaking of that, I know that one of these sons of Satan AI programs is rewriting the Bible. And the way that AI works, so you can't tell the real from the unreal. They've got that 7D technology now. I mean, they're always using it in Dubai, where they'll have whales come up out of the concrete and circle around buildings. Phenomenal technology. It's called 7D, but it's absolutely real and lifelike looking. And if they can do that, who knows what they're going to end up doing to try to deceive the rest of the planet. All right, Doreen B 8951 says, Stephen, do the governments of the world know the timeline of when Planet X is incoming?
The only entity that really truly knows the accurate timeline of Planet X is the Vatican, and the reason why I kind of know a little bit more about this was, and maybe we talked about this last time, Daniel. I got requested to do input on the Planet X phenomena because of from going into ancient documents to see if there was DNA manipulation of the human species back the last time that the planet came through here. And I never will forget saying, I said, well, I guess that takes away the whole idea of this being a conspiracy theory. They said, well, yeah, kind of exactly, it does. But one of the things that I was told then, because I asked about it, I said, well, when is this supposed to come through, Planet X then? And they told me then that the Vatican with the Lucifer telescope, that was actually designed to track Planet X, and that the Vatican is the gatekeeper of that knowledge. In fact, I was told about 8 months ago or so that the Vatican will end up releasing the information to the Russians before they'll release it to us. Now, I don't know why that is. I've got my speculations on why, but that we, as far as the United States, we were tracking 3 different systems because we weren't really sure 100%, at least that's what I was told. Whether or not that was really true or not, I don't know. But we were looking at one that the time frame's already passed. The other one was going to be 2024. And then the one beyond that is actually 2030. That was their time. That was 2024 and 2030 were the 2 different time frames that I was told. Then I got an update that the binary system had entered our solar system back in, I think, January of this year. Now, how long would it take to actually come all the way through and come back around? I don't know. They didn't say on that. But the one thing that has always been consistent with the people that I know is that they say that this binary system literally runs on the edge of the ether. Now, when we say the edge of the ether, you got to keep in mind the ether is what holds dimensions together. So it doesn't, and the ether is all around you. So it's not like, going along the coastline, but I guess in a way we kind of think like that. But it's literally running in a parallel dimension to our dimension. So I asked, in fact, recently when we were in a discussion, I brought this up again. I said, well, if I really understand this correctly then, because what they were telling me is that when this thing appears, it's going to suddenly be on top of us, and there's no way to hide it, no way to get around it. But I said, well, then does that mean that CERN has something to do with it? When I say CERN, we've got, I think there's 5 hadron colliders on the planet. They don't tell people about it, but we have 5. And they said exactly. They said, in fact, that's what's creating most of the problems that we have is they're running all these things simultaneously. And they said, basically, it's like opening the door, opening a window. So I have a feeling that these entities, these demons that are on this earth here, they know right about the time when it's supposed to be in the right position. They're going to cause us to open that portal. And when we do, that's going to allow that system to suddenly be on our side. And who knows what the heck is going to happen at that point, Daniel. I mean, I think about Joel chapter 2, most people never think about that, about these horsemen in there. And it talks about how they run like horses on their hind legs. That reminds me so much of a reptilian. It's not funny when you think about Joel's description of this army that's coming.
You mentioned the Pope. I mean, when I think of the Pope, I think poop on the Pope, but I can't say that because he probably he'd get excited if that happened. All right, let's get over here. Is there a hollow Earth, and why do UFOs mostly come out of the ocean or the Great Lakes?
All right, the Earth. We do have, and how you would describe it, whether you want to say hollow or not. We definitely have an inner part of the Earth. We have oceans in there as well. There's a different type of lighting system in there. I know that there's supposed to be, from what I've heard, 3 different types of species that live there. But there's also entities that do live in the oceans as well. We even have a colony off the coast of California that is a mermaid colony that lives in that part of the ocean there. We have a type of entity that, although they have a form similar to that of a human, their face is kind of like they have like this droopy looking thing on their cheeks there, and they can breathe underwater or they can breathe air. They look kind of really weird looking, but there again, there's another thing that's kind of interesting too, Daniel, that a lot of people don't think about, and that is when you're dealing with these entities, and whether they're going into the earth or the oceans or whatever, you're also dealing with dimensions. And that's something that a lot of people are not even aware of. We're dealing a lot with dimensions. So we've got, when I say we, the government's got classified imagery where you'll see like a UFO coming down to Earth, and you think the thing's just going to crash into the Earth, and then suddenly it's gone. In fact, a friend of mine sent me a video not long ago of this orb-looking thing that comes down. It's a UFO, and it just comes right down to the mountain, but then it just disappears into the mountain.
Mm.
That, from what I've been told, though, is you're dealing with dimensions. It's a lot of times, even like, because I felt like this whole thing out in what was it? Was it Las Vegas where they had this sighting and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt like that this was just a hoax. And that was just my personal opinion on it. And then I asked, I'm like, okay, to me it's a hoax. I don't believe it. And the next thing I know, I'm asking about it. I'm like, is that really true or not? And then I'm told, well, it is. But they said, but Steve, what you don't understand, it's not. The reason why it looks like a hoax is because that particular incident was a dimensional incident. It's basically, they said that we're in a time period right now where our dimensions are merging. And when I say merging, he said he said more and more people are going to find themselves fading into another dimension. They don't realize that they are,
mm-hmm.
but it's like you're going to be able to see things that you never saw before,
mm-hmm.
because you're dealing with that.
Well, Stephen, how would we know we're in another dimension?
Daniel, I really honestly don't know the answer to that. Other than, maybe what we see, like when you're showing this entity there on the screen there, is that, because he's merged into our dimension? Because that's the other side of it as well. I've been told that, it'll be both ways. Like they'll merge into ours, we'll merge into theirs. Mm-hmm. There's something about the veil, so to speak, is breaking down. And from the way it's been described to me, this is because of what's happening to the earth. It's because of the different energies that are hitting us. Even the one thing that I was told about, and oddly, I was able to actually find some photographs online that actually backed it up, was that those energies that are hitting the earth, and it's only a hypothesis, but it's also causing, especially in reptilians and things, they're growing into massive size. In this one particular incident, I was told that, that the Japanese had caught this great white shark that was 50 foot long. Now, great white, normally biggest great white we've ever heard of.
Sounds like the Meg.
25 foot maybe, or 20 foot, something like that. But they said, no, it's 50 foot long. That's, like a megalodon. And oddly enough, I just did a little searching, and sure enough, there was actually the photographs, and he's sitting there. They got him up on the dock. They caught him in a net, but what it was, I think he was choking on a sea turtle. He had a whole sea turtle in his mouth, and you can tell it's not a doctored image or anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff, this is really real, But we don't know why. There's just hypotheses as why these things are happening.
Well, let's get a little bit deeper into that. Talking about maybe a holographic universe, or maybe a different dimension. Maybe we're operating in a different dimension. I mean, the thesis behind the Matrix was that you were in a completely made up world. And how do we know that we're not in that world right now? I mean, suppose, and I woke up today, I was Daniel Ott, okay? But tomorrow I could wake up and I'm Billy the Kid. I wouldn't know because I'm in a holographic universe and it just told me what I was that day. So how would I know that each day is a continuation of the previous day, or is it a new? I mean, how does one ever tell the difference? But the thing of it was, get back to the Matrix, was that Morpheus kind of said, something is wrong. It's like a splinter in your mind, but he said, but you can't tell what it is. And isn't that what you're saying? There is something wrong on a global scale, on a spiritual scale, on a dimensional scale, that we all know, everyone knows something is wrong. And interestingly enough, I was watching a guy went viral named Oliver Anthony, put out a video, Rich Men for Rich Men, and I went and watched every single reaction to that video. He's a white guy out in the woods. He comes out of the woods. Now he's number one on iTunes. 23 million views on his thing. He's not even a musician. He wrote a song and out of nowhere. But I watched the reaction videos, and a lot of them were African Americans or blacks or just Americans, however they define themselves. But they all said, a lot of them said, well, there is something wrong. I don't know what it is. Something is wrong. They were saying that. So, across, races, the people know something's intrinsically wrong.
Exactly. And I think, Daniel, that comes back to when we look at the word redemption itself. Jesus came to redeem us. And that word redemption, and I'm not a Greek scholar, Hebrew is the language for me, but it is to bring something back and back to where it was before. So that makes me wonder if we're not trapped in a realm that is really not where he intended us to be in the first place. And it would make sense because, let's face it, death is everywhere here. Everything dies. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be humans, animals, plant life, botany life, everything dies. So, but where Christ is, and of course he said, I go and prepare a place for you, that where I am, that you may be also. So the thing is regardless of what people's doctrines or thoughts may be, eventually somewhere along the line, we got to get out of this place because, as Paul said, there's no continual city here. So, whether it's similar to that or what the Matrix brings out or not, any argument would be just as good as the other on that. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised that maybe there is some truth to some of these things there. But it is certainly over my head.
Well, that also kind of leads in the Mandela, what people describe as the Mandela effect, saying, right. Well, I know this was this way, and now it's this way, but I know for sure it wasn't that way. Now, of course, getting back to the natural explanation that we were debating in the first hour, how somebody's going to give you a natural explanation, and people are saying, well, it's just mass hallucination. Everybody just got it wrong. Their own mind filled in the blanks, and I don't think so. Okay, I've seen enough evidence out there to say something's off here, and I ain't that stupid, and I don't have that bad of a memory. I was there when Mr. Rogers says it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, not a wonderful day in this neighborhood. He never said this. So I'm just saying, is that part of CERN? Is that the ripple effect from CERN?
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, you have to ask yourself that question. That lets me know, Daniel, you and I are about the same age then. If you were watching Mr. Rogers as well. So, God.
Yeah. Oh, there you go, man. I'll tell you what, though. I had a grade school teacher. His name was Mr. Reader. Okay, and in a shop class, and if you did something wrong, he would flip his shoe up and he would hit you wherever. I mean, that guy's a great target, man. Like if you're hiding behind something, boom, man, he just stole the shoe out there. I don't know where that's coming from, but I guess talking about the same age. All right, here we go. So somebody just asked a question, in fact, about the Peru tall aliens, and I remember somebody mentioned flying jetpacks. There have been videos of people flying around, what looked like aliens flying around, but the natural explanation is, people are buying jetpacks now, and they're flying around jetpacks. I mean, what do they take us for?
Well, they must think that we're kind of goofy, I guess, but you have to keep in mind, even technology that we have is, for the most part, is reverse engineered, especially if it's really advanced technology, whether you're dealing with computers or whatever. I know that the Cat5 cables what was it? There's one particular type of I'm trying to think of the name of it there that we got that actually come off of the Roswell craft. That's where that come from, and it was fiber optics. That's what I was trying to think of. Fiber optics that came off one of off the Roswell crash itself, and a lot of these things, even the spaceships that we have, are just reverse engineered technology from things we've shot down or the Russians shot down. And so we figure out how to make it. So, and we've got some pretty advanced stuff. Daniel, I mean, I think I mentioned that last time, though, we've got one spaceship that is about, when I say a spaceship, it's about 1 kilometer long, but it doesn't look like Star Trek or anything like that. It's more like what the space station would look like, but just massive in size.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing roams around, back and forth between here and Mars and other planets, in our solar system. Nobody believes it. Nobody would believe it if they saw it.
It just roams around, huh? But that reminds me
of. Yeah, they have place. I mean, it's not like it's aimless in what they're doing,
right.
but it does have a mission.
That reminds me of the Stephenville UFO sighting. They said that thing was about a mile long, about a mile. I mean, I'm just saying, how right. We look at things dimensionally of our own size and our planetary size, but here, let me just run a quick little video, and we'll keep talking. When talk about what planets look like, here's a planet size. So I could say that if you hear somebody say a mile long craft, I'm sure there's probably one that out there somewhere that's 100 miles long. I mean, like I say, we're looking at a 6-foot man, but when they're talking about giants and you talk about planet bodies out there with inhabited, there could be giants 400 or 500 feet tall. Could there not be?
I've heard as high as 25 foot. And I wouldn't doubt that there are bigger. It's funny you mentioned this though. There's actually a spacecraft that it's been orbiting the sun now for quite some time. And it is very, very large. And I've been told that they say that, you could have amateur astronomers, if they really know what they're doing, they could actually spot it. But we don't know what it's there for. We know that it, we feel like that it's getting fuel from the sun, but why is it staying around the sun? And every so often we'll see it again. It doesn't always stay there. It's not like it's just hanging out at the sun on a constant basis, but there is a great concern that we're going to be dealing with. And I shouldn't just say a great concern. You have to remember, even Colonel Gregg has mentioned this on your program before, the reptilians down at Dulce. In fact, that was the first time I ever got to see spacecraft for myself. In one night, I've seen 7 in one night alone. Dulce is one of the most busiest places on the planet as far as being able to see from that location there. And the best way to do it is use night vision goggles. If you got night vision goggles, you want to see what's going on and everything, get around Dulce, New Mexico. And you talking about, some people, they look up and they'll see things and it looks like, it's just going across like that. No. When these entities are moving, they are moving at lightning type speed. Otherwise, it's normally satellites. You might see satellites above too. So if you're using night vision, the way you know the difference is alien technology, unless they're intentionally going slow, is very, very rapid. I've even seen our own spacecraft. I've seen one out of Texas one time using night vision, and sure enough, because we have these ones that are more like a triangle shape, and so that was kind of interesting to see that. I'd never seen one before.
So what I do is when I'm looking up there, looking for satellites or whatever is up in the sky, if it makes a right turn, it ain't a satellite. That's my simple test, man, from a cowboy's perspective. All right, here's a question. It says, why is it so rare to hear about the aliens that condemned reptiles underground? Are those beings angels?
That's an interesting question, and I'll tell you something that I've heard conflicting reports on that. But one of the things that kind of stands out in my mind are the Venetians. We have a group of Venetians that are in inner Earth, and for some reason, they're not allowed to leave. Now, that would also speculate as to whether or not they are the true fallen angels and not the reptilians. Now, I don't know the answer to this. I'm just going to kind of share it out loud, Daniel, as far as what I've heard about this. When I say this, we have Venetians that actually are in communication with our government, work with our government, things like that. And that question has come up before to them. Why are the Venetians that live in inner Earth not allowed to leave? And they will not answer that question. And so the speculation has been is could they actually be the fallen angels, and that's why they're there and they're not allowed to leave. I don't know, but I'm kind of more along the line of what you're saying, that it's actually the reptilians that are the ones that are the fallen ones that did all this mischief.
That's what I'm thinking.
And we do have them. I mean, they have massive when I say underground, we're not talking about inner earth. We're talking about subterranean levels, and they literally connect continents together, where they have these underground tunnels and stuff that go from one place to another. And I've heard some really weird things, but then there's hotbeds too, like Los Angeles. Under Los Angeles is a hotbed, and they do eat humans. I've heard that as well, and that a lot of the people that are homeless end up disappearing, and it's because of that. And I don't know if that's a full-time dinner eating smorgasbord in California or not, but also the place over in northern Africa is another place where there's a lot of them underground. Just different places like that around the globe. Some of the stuff, it seems unbelievable when you hear these type stories. It's just like when you listen to Colonel Greg on your program before, I'm sure a lot of people scratch your head and they're like, really? It is hard to believe. It really is.
Yeah. You also say, well, it's hard to believe that our country would destroy its own energy supply and allow millions of illegals to flood the country and be in association with various bioweapons. I mean, you would say that's ridiculous, or that a previous president would be indicted 4 times. I mean, you would say, you could say, there's so many things you could say that's going on today, but if you said 5 years ago, there's no way that's going to happen. This is America. So you've got to open your mind a little bit to the impossible and the bizarre, because in fact, if what you see is that bizarre, what you don't see is even more bizarre. By the way, welcome to the chat. John Adam, JJ, Joe Collins, Curious, and Robert Griffin all just joined us here. Believe says, Stephen, what happened to the asteroids?
That was one of the things that kind of threw me off a little bit as well, because back about 2 years ago, and maybe it could have been a little bit longer now, they were talking about, we had some very large asteroids that were impending, two and specifically, one off the coast of California, or I'd say off the west coast, hitting the subduction zone, and another one that they're talking about that would hit Puerto Rico. And initially I thought that, okay, maybe we moved them out of the way. I'd ask about it. I always get a different story on it. And then it just kind of died out and everything. So finally, the issue came back up again not long ago, and I actually quit talking about it publicly a lot because it caused so much confusion for people as well as myself. Why have we not had this already happen? And so finally, what was said to me is that they said the asteroids are there, they've never left, and what we're actually dealing with is part of the asteroid belt that we already have that's been around the planet for a long period of time. And I said, well, then why is it then that you guys will say that you think, and of course, I would use the word probability because that's what I would be told, but still, if you tell somebody that the probability of an asteroid coming in this year, roughly about this time, people are putting on the seatbelt getting ready for it. And so then I asked, okay, then what's the deal then? Why is it then that it's not happened yet, but it's still a potential hazard? And it came back was this here is that it's the magnetosphere. The only thing that keeps these asteroids at bay is our magnetosphere. And what the issue is, the reason why they call it a probability is because it's based on whether or not they feel like that this is going to be the time that magnetosphere collapses. And that deals with what's happening to the sun. And then what's happening to the sun deals with the binary system that's coming. So the question is the binary system having enough effects on the sun that will cause those mass ejections from the sun to where it would be large enough to finally, eventually, it will cause the magnetosphere to collapse. But they say when it does, and for them, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, kind of like the great earthquake of California that we've heard prophesied about for years. It's supposed to be not a matter of if, but when. But they say when that magnetosphere does collapse, that's when those rocks are not going to be stopped. And I do know that there's different little showers of things that they anticipate still yet to come, but that's a little different. But when it comes to those two bigger ones that they told me about, they said that's still eventually going to happen, but it will be as that binary system gets closer. And once it's close enough where it affects the sun enough, it'll cause that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, are we going to be able to see that before it breaks down the magnetosphere?
The only thing that I hear about the magnetosphere is once it actually collapses, and this is through a German scientist friend of mine. He explained to me. He said we don't have really any true evidence that we can say this is what happens when the magnetosphere collapses. He said, but from what our theory is that when it collapses, you will be able to see in things that you've never seen before. In fact, he even mentions about the dimensions. I've heard this from people in Washington as well, is that when that collapses, that also is kind of like something that helps or kind of prevents us from seeing in other dimensions as well. Mm-hmm. So, and again, those things are really beyond my understanding. It's just kind of the way
isn't there, Stephen Ben-Nun, isn't there an example in the Bible of that where somebody prayed and said, "Let them see the forces"?
Yes.
So I'm just you're kind of saying that there's a veil there, that there's literally all kinds of stuff happening here, and if you're in the right spiritual condition, you might be able to just in fact see them.
Yes, that was Elisha and Gehazi, his servant. And, and it wasn't that Elisha could actually see it. If you ever notice the biblical account of that, it's just that, Gehazi was worried about the armies that were coming against Israel. And finally, Elisha says, Lord, he said, open that boy's eyes. Mm-hmm. And suddenly his eyes come open and he could see chariots of fire and everything all around, think about even the description. It's interesting you bring that up, Daniel. I hadn't thought about that scripture in a long time, right? But he saw chariots of fire. What the world is he thinking when he says chariots of fire? I mean, could you imagine? What does it really look like? Is that just the way he describes it? I mean, I don't know, but nonetheless, it was clearly a dimensional thing, and it seems like there's another place of a similar type of phenomena that takes place.
Well, it says in the New Testament that that we see through a glass darkly. So, man, we're obviously our carnal eyes are not allowed to see there, unless there's specific conditions where the Spirit of God will allow us to, and perhaps that those veils will be taken off the eyes of the believers the closer we get, and we'll be able to elude some of the forces come against us, and they won't understand it. How did we know? How did we see it coming? Everybody else couldn't see it because they were blinded. All right, hear about this here. Anonymous 1350 says, do the elites know who the Antichrist is right now?
I would have to say yes. And I don't know that because I know. I've heard all kinds of different speculations and stuff, even from Nimrod, and we brought his body back here to the United States from Iraq. Mm-hmm. And I know that in fact the Israelis took over that project. They're trying to revive his body. As strange as that can get, they're trying to resurrect that body because it was in pristine condition. I know that there's we have some biblical documents that said he was beheaded, or ancient documents, I should say. But according to what they described, he was not beheaded. He was intact, and that and he had very similar to the Kandahar giant. He was only 7 foot tall, but he had multiple rows of teeth, things like that.
Ooh, sick.
But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with that?
I'll tell you what, them Nimrods out in Hawaii, man, they shut the water off on people, so I don't appreciate that one bit. All right. All right, let's get there's tons of questions in here. I'll just kind of off the cuff here. If you as a reptilian or giant alien, do they have a favorite type of music, you think?
I have no clue.
That's a deep philosophical question, man. We were going to bust that live here on this program, man. I mean, that would have went through the internet, man. All right, here we go. And by the way, people are saying thank you for your great answers that are watching the show. Here's another question. Will there be a 2024 election with all this going on?
Yes. There's going to be a 2024 election. In fact, it's funny because everything that I'd heard, they wanted to make sure Trump could never get back into office.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was being raided at his Mar-a-Lago home, I was actually in Florida at the time, and I was with one of his one of Trump's former advisors, and I'm sitting there reading Trump Jr. texting the friend of mine there saying, Daddy really wants to talk to you right now because, and he was describing everything that was going on with the raid and how that Trump's wife was so upset, so discouraged with the American people for allowing all these things to happen to her husband. And so it's kind of an interesting thing to see. But at this point right now, there is a great anticipation that he will actually make it back as president again.
Wow.
And in fact, I was told when this was all going on that there was going to be some things that were going to surface on Biden in the not so distant future that were going to be very embarrassing. And I think that was where finally some of that information about the deals that him and Hunter Biden were doing over in Ukraine began to surface. In fact, the very man that began to surface with, I tried to contact him before Russia ever invaded. I don't want to call it invaded, but whatever you want to look at it, before Russia goes into Ukraine. And I say not to call it invaded because I know a little bit more about that issue before it happened and why it happened. And I knew about the fact that we actually had troops. We were in support of Ukraine and overthrowing the Donetsk region. The Russians knew about it. They didn't really think that we were going to do it, but they kind of figured it might happen. But that's one reason why the Russians went in so ill-equipped in the beginning, was because they just had to throw together whatever they had to try to.
That kind of reminds me. I was just thinking. I don't know. It was Jesus, one of the disciples. I think it was Jesus that the throng was wanting to take him, but he just walked right through them, and that's kind of like Trump.
Right.
He is surrounded.
That goes back to that other part, right, where he could walk through there and the people didn't see it. There again, that's another dimensional issue.
Well, there's another one when Peter had the vision of the sheep being let down, and then was it Paul that said, "I had a vision, whether I was in the body or not, I can't tell you." I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think we're going to see more of that. And when we see giants walking down the road, we're also going to see the power of God in equal and greater proportions than that, because God's still on the throne, and He will laugh at the derision of the human plans against Him. Now, you're in Tennessee.
Right now, I'm down in Florida, but I live in Tennessee.
Okay, so east or west?
I'm in the east side, just north of Knoxville, about an hour north of Knoxville. So
I was just in Rolling Mountain a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there I found some Sasquatch footprints, by the way. But listen, I wanted to ask you this, totally unrelated, but it's deep philosophical question number 2. I picked up something called Dr. Enough. Do you know what that is, and do you drink it?
I've never drank it before, but I have seen that, yes.
Okay. That's ridiculous. No, it's like an energy drink, so I didn't know if all Tennesseans, that's something, that us Northerners, we don't understand, I consider myself a Northerner to an East Tennessean. But anyway, all right, so that was a deep question right there. All right, are beings from hell people that sold their soul in a previous life?
All right, you're dealing with, there's all types of entities to begin with. Everything from those that have physical bodies like that of the reptilians, Venetians, whatever you might have out there. You have entities that are more of a spiritual nature. You have people that have died that are trapped and they can't seem to go on. Kind of like when we see the description that Abraham talks about, Lazarus and then of course the rich man, and he's in hell type thing. There's all types of things and when I say, I'm only speaking this from a government standpoint of what they're aware of. And yet they're not even, of course you have Christians that are in the government, but a lot of these guys are atheists and don't believe in God in the first place. And yet they realize that these things are really real. In fact, that's become a big issue for them because they're having a struggle to acknowledge this because they say they don't want to say that it's evil spirits, because they say it's evil spirits, then they have to acknowledge that there must be a God, there must be a good spirit.
Exactly.
But yet they do realize it's very evil entities that are out there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Put Yahweh first says, Stephen, what is the most controversial subject you cover?
So, did I cover
all of them?
Oh my God! Oh yeah, I can guarantee you, boy. I stay on the hot seat on practically everything you can imagine. I think one of the big things for me, though, that I do cover, and you have to be careful on, is the push of the Noahide laws. That's one of the big ones right there, because they seem to be innocent, but it is a New World Order agenda. In fact, that actually cost my father-in-law his life.
Oh man.
When we were covering that, yeah, we actually found that out later, but I have to qualify that as my opinion, but I kind of know that on a much deeper level. In fact, I actually, for the first time, I think we just released a video about what happened to our family back in 2021. It's on our Israeli News Live iConnect FX channel. Is where that's at, because you can't put that on YouTube, that censor it and throw it off.
Right.
Also, my wife's channel, she has Odyssey Israeli News Live, and that's where we put the controversial issues, is over there.
All right. Everybody needs. By the way, everybody, we have a link to his website there in the bio section there. All right. Here's another question. It says, "What information?" This is from Arkansas, Bob. Do you know about Stargates?
You know, there's one thing that was shared with me about that was kind of interesting, and it's not quite what you think. You know, I forget, Daniel, what that movie was called, but it's kind of like a Stargate movie. They bring this thing in and they can jump through, they go to another dimension or something like that. And I've never actually seen the movie. The funny thing is, I've never seen the movie, but I was in a discussion one time, and there was a device. And maybe we said this last time. If we did, you can stop me. We don't have to go through it again.
Sure, go ahead.
But we found this device over in the Middle East, and they brought it back to the United States. We took it down. It was actually the device. We took it down underneath the airport there, and the military base we have underground in Colorado. That's where this device was taken. And the scientists that were working on this thing was trying to figure out how in the world this thing works. And it was similar like that movie in the Stargate movie that they have out there. But the only thing is, it's not like some portal just shows up. It wasn't like that. But it was a device to where you had to kind of, the way it was described to me, you match up, it was like coded. And it was almost like a telephone, like it would dial out, and you're hoping somebody would pick it up. Not like it rings like a telephone, but they had finally figured out that it had a dial out ability. And they tried several signals with it to see if anything would happen, and nothing happened. Well, one particular, I don't know if it was nighttime, daytime, whatever it was, the scientists are there. They've been working with this thing, and then a call comes in on it. Now, I don't know what it means when a call comes in. They don't tell me, is it ringing or buzzing or whatever, but they were getting a signal coming back in. And so they took a little bit of time to get permission from whoever it is that gives that permission to answer it, but they finally decided to answer it. And when they did, it literally opened a portal. It just like in the Stargate thing, it opened a portal, and this worm-looking creature, about 6 foot long, but huge. When I said, not like a snake, we're talking about, the way it's described is like, maybe 2 foot around. But this thing comes through there and started killing scientists that were in the room.
Wow.
And of course, these scientists are protected. We have our military and stuff like that down there, they did everything they could. Whoever could get out, they got him out. But then they decided to take the only way to keep that thing trapped, because they couldn't figure out how to get him back out of this portal that was open. So they brought in concrete trucks, and they just sealed that entire level off by just pouring, I forget how many loads of concrete they poured to seal that chamber of that part of the base off. It's kind of the craziest thing I've ever heard, but that's the only thing near like a Stargate that I've ever heard about.
Kind of reminds me of that movie Event Horizon, where a spaceship goes out and it gets lost, and it actually went into a different dimension, but the dimension was hell, and it came back, and the ship had brought back evil with it. So I wish the crazy government scientists, man, would stop messing around with with gateways to hell, because whatever the hell is over there, I don't want it to hell over here. You know, see what I'm saying? All right.
That's the problem. That's what they're doing by doing this crazy things that they're doing, is they're opening up portals, and this is the fear. Some of the people that I know, that they're fearful that all that we're doing with CERN is going to cause, as they put it, another Atlantis type of event. It is, from what I've been told before, is that they do have the recorded documentation that Atlantis was actually caused, the sinking of Atlantis was caused by alien entities that had gotten them the technology very similar to that of CERN, and they opened up a portal to let some of their buddies in. And when they did, it sunk Atlantis as a result of it.
So nothing but bad things happen when you're opening portals. That's for daggone sure.
You ain't kidding.
All right, here's another question. Are there good spirits or beings that we have worked with? Because it always seems that we're working with, some scaly reptilian or something, trying to get something out of them. But I mean, is there like a good bunch of them that says, hey man, we're good guys, we're going to help you all out?
You know, it's funny that question come up there, because I was actually in a group meeting one time where that was being asked by an investigative reporter that was allowed to come in on this particular classified type of meeting and discuss those issues. And that was brought up in that meeting. And the question was asked was about the Palladians, because this individual felt like that the Palladians really seemed to have the human agenda at heart. And I remember the answer back was, you may think they have our interests at heart, but they all have an agenda. And at least that was the opinion of the person that was answering that. And they said, because, they're the head of the Galactic Federation, but they have more advanced technology even than the reptilians, but they're no match for the reptilians. And basically the end of that, the conversation on that was because that person was really convinced that only the Palladians could save the day. But what really hit me the hardest was, this was a person that was, I don't want to say they were anti-Jesus or nothing, but they really had never given that true hope and faith that Jesus Christ truly was the only person that cared about our well-being as a human race on this planet. But when the wind was let out of their sails, that was the very thing that they said next. They said, I guess then truly the only hope for mankind is that Jesus Christ truly is the Son of God and will come and save us at the end of the day. Because if not, we're all lost. That shocked me out of that person's mouth.
Okay. Have the aliens ever communicated with humans about the existence of reincarnation or even heaven or hell?
I'm not privy to any specific communications on the issue of reincarnation, other than, not through entities or things like that. I do know that we have a lot of ancient documents where things like that are written in there about those things. I do know that they have discussed the issue of heaven and hell with people in our government, but I have never been it's never really been disclosed to me the depth of those conversations on that there. I just know that that's happened, yes.
Okay. All right, here's a question coming in here. It says, have you had any firsthand experience with any creatures?
Not creatures, no.
Entities?
Only the spaceships. But now my brother-in-law, yes. He's been abducted more than one time.
Wow. Somebody asked, why is it they keep getting abducted but nothing really bad happens to them? So I don't know about that. Now, I've experienced shadow people. I know about that. I think I've seen an angel in a certain event in my life. Haven't seen Bigfoot, though. I have photographed Bigfoot footprints. I mean, we weren't even looking for them. And it was just like, I've heard Bigfoot in the forest. I had rock thrown at me. One particular event, I'll give you this one here. I was at a graveyard 2:00 in the morning. Don't ask me what I was doing there, but I was with some other people, and I kid you not, man. Okay, so the moon was full, spooky, right? And was all standing on the gravel road talking about. We had rocks thrown at us, various things going on, and man, something comes running down that gravel driveway, boom, 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 just running, and it got louder and louder and louder. And so we were on the gravel road, and we jumped into the grass because we thought we were going to get hit by this thing. So there are things out there. I don't know if you just, but then other people, if they say they've seen a Bigfoot, since I didn't see it, I can't say that they did, But I think, like you said in the first hour, Stephen, is that there are incursions. The incursions into this dimension, there are more frequent now. The big tall aliens, the guy in Las Vegas, I think we may talk about that. So the same kind of 8-foot aliens walking around in his backyard after the craft lands in his yard. Now, and I think I told you that the police actually put cameras on his house because they wanted to see. They believed it. So, I just think they've got cloaking devices. I think they know if you're watching them. By the way, so here's something interesting. I learned this trick from watching the L.A. Marzulli interview. So me and the wife were up top of Rowan Mountain, way up there in eastern Tennessee, and we got off trail. We want to see what's down this trail. They said don't go there or whatever. I don't know what it was. They said go this way, go this way. So well, I'm gonna go that way. So we went that way. Well, that's where we found Bigfoot. We not only found a structure made of sticks, 2 of them, and then we found footprints, numbers of them, adults and smaller ones. I learned a trick. So we went up there and we were coming back down. So I took my camera, and as I was walking back, we were walking back the trail. I was recording behind me. I was walking down the trail like this. Of course, this is reversed, but the camera's now on this side. Right. So I'm walking. I'm just walking, and this is a great way to do it because if you're coming up a trail and you got your camera, I think they see that. But if you're walking down, that confuses them. See, they don't know what you're doing there. Although I didn't catch one, this is a tip. This is a Sasquatch tip for anybody. If you're on a trail, take your camera and reverse it and just walk like this. And so the Bigfoot think you're looking that way, but your camera, he don't know the difference. See, a little tip there for you. I didn't see anything. I bet I could have.
In Tennessee, eastern Tennessee, I do know from government sources that there is a community of Bigfeet that do live in that area there, right close to the the Virginia line area or something up in that area there.
Oh man, so, I just got goosebumps on that one. I met a guy who said his brother said that there's a family of Bigfoot that migrates right through his backyard every year, right in the area that you're describing.
Yes. And, when you mentioned the issue about angels, now that I have had 2 encounters of in my life, but I don't normally consider that the alien form there. But I did have where I've actually met an angel twice. And in both instances, it was warning me of something that was going to happen to where they actually came to me. And in both cases, it actually happened exactly what I was told it was going to happen. So I have seen as far as that, but I've never considered that to be like alien entities or anything. But that was very, very profound.
So do you believe that people have angels assigned to them?
That's a good question. In one way, I want to say yes, but does that mean every single person? Maybe not. I don't know, but that's a good question. I mean, I don't know if we have a biblical reference to support it or not, but you would think to some degree, though, we would, because otherwise, how do we, because there's so many demonic entities out there that if it wasn't for some divine intervention, where would we be? I mean, just have to think about it in that regards there.
Yeah, I think, we had a guest on talking about life reviews, and I always thought that we would see, but as believers, we would see all kind of events in our life that we were steered away from or protected from that we don't even know about. I mean, I people that watch the show a long time, they know. I mean, I've got several stories where I'm a young man driving a motorcycle down a gravel alley, and the motorcycle lost traction, and I'm falling off, and I'm thinking, man, this is it. I didn't have a helmet because when you're young, you're invincible, right? And I saw the ground this far from my eyeball, and all of a sudden that motorcycle stood right back up. And
Yes.
and I think, well, how did that happen? That's impossible. There was gravel there, and even if I mean, you had to have something. It'd have to have traction to do that, and I lost traction. So I mean, there are cases where it just seems inexplicable that maybe somebody is looking out for you. Now, here's something though, Stephen. Okay, somebody's watching and saying, "Man, nobody's looking out for me." What do you say to them?
I disagree with that because, the thing is, like you said, Daniel, a lot of times things happen and you might not know it now. It might be later. I used to say that, when you take the wrong turn and then you're angry because you went down the wrong way and you're like, I can't believe I did that. And you get all kind of frustrated and everything. You may not realize that was intended by God for you to make that wrong turn, because where would you have been otherwise? And that happened to me in Israel in 2004 when I was walking down the street with a suicide bomber that was fixing to blow herself up. And I'm having these conversations going off in my head, not realizing that it was basically whether it be an angel or the devil, because one was saying, go this way, and the other thought that was coming to my head was, no, go this way. One was arrogant, one was kind. The kind one, I ended up following the thought, and when I did, it put me right in behind the wall. She detonated herself. I still got knocked down from the blast, but the shrapnel couldn't hit me because now the wall and the drop of the slope of the mountain had protected me from the shrapnel itself. So you never know. And like you mentioned there, I had a situation, we had a little speedboat, and literally my wife was standing on the shore and I was driving it, but the engine was way too strong for the boat. It went up, flipped all the way upside down, and I should have just went right in like that. And then the next thing you know, it flips back over again.
What?
And my wife even said, I never in my life seen anything like it. She said, I watched you flip upside down, and then it flipped back over again. And my oldest daughter was with me at the time, and she was only maybe about 3 years old, And so my thought is that had it not been for that intervention there, she may have very well died in a boat accident that day.
See, we're getting near the end of the broadcast, man. Anything you want to say about your website or anything you got, you go right ahead. Your show or anything.
Oh, gosh. Well, website IsraeliNewsLive.org. Just, one thing that I have been doing more of here recently is just teachings, biblical teachings, because I feel Daniel's so impressed in my heart, and that's where God has gifted me a lot, is, on teaching. And so I'm really trying to put out more things there that will help people, to encourage them to have faith. And a lot of times that's on Israeli News Live, but sometimes it is on Ben-Nun. We have also a channel on YouTube called Ben-Nun Institute. But most everything will still pop up on Israeli News Live, whether it be our YouTube, our website, whatever. Come join us.
Absolutely. All right, Stephen Ben-Nun, I appreciate you coming back on the Edge broadcast. Can you come back sometime in the future?
You better believe it, Daniel.
And it's always good.
I got to get you over here with us. I enjoy this. I literally look forward to being able to get to come on with you. It's always exciting to come on here. So we got to set a time up.
Just give me a holler,
let
man.
Our audience meet you as well. Maybe they probably all know you anyway, and I'm just the only dummy that didn't know. But just give me a holler whenever you're ready. Sounds great, brother. All right. God bless you, and thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye. All right.